Hello, it's Sue with part 2 of Saving Words. We left off with Animal Planet on the TV early morning, so here we go. One young chimp plunged a paw into a jungle river and pulled up a box turtle. Remember, we're watching Animal Planet. Oh, I can't watch this part, I said loudly, hoping to engage my sleepy son. It worked. He opened his eyes as I protested, "Oh no," watching the chimp move the captive turtle to its mouth. Then the narrator said, "The shell protected the box turtle." "Yay!" I cheered. So the box turtle lived, and my son was awake. 8:04 a.m. Still gray and rainy. Michael had a good practice and is now completing a chemistry worksheet. School starts late every other Wednesday, so he can squeeze an hour of work in from 8 to 9 a.m. We just enjoyed a delicious breakfast, and actually, too, I fried up 6 sausages, even though it's Ash Wednesday. "We'll skip meat another morning," I said. I hardly ate yesterday, and my 6'3" son needs every piece of food available. My husband also joined us in our food fest. Now that I think of it, maybe it's best to fast from meat for the rest of the day and start to be mindful of Ash Wednesday right now. 8:30 a.m. For weeks, I had been considering what to do or what to give up for Lent. And I finally decided last Sunday at Mass. During the homily, I heard the priest say, "We are called to be a joyful people. You can choose to view life as a blessing or a curse." He continued and said, "Yes, you may say it can't be that simple because of tragedy and death and destruction. And you're right, those things do happen." Okay, keep going, I thought. In using God's gift of choice, he said, we can try to choose blessing more. If our choice was bad yesterday, today we can choose blessing. He paused, looked around, and challenged us. Will I experience peace in my heart? Try and you will know. The priest had touched on a question I had been wrestling with since childhood. What is the meaning of life? It's a haunting question, an eternal question, and he provided an answer. To me, he was saying that God has created us and set us here upon the earth, which is wondrous and mesmerizing, but also laced with anguish and heartache. He noted that hardship, suffering, and loss will come. And when they do, we will struggle. While his words did not directly speak to my inquiry, they lined up alongside it. It struck me at Mass that to help answer this question for myself once and for all, I could examine my own normal life, ordinary day in and ordinary day out on paper for the next 40 days of Lent. I thought I could reflect and write and finally come to an acceptable answer. As the priest said, try and you will know. If I had to supply an answer right now, it would be to live each day with love and kindness. That's it. But how in the world do you actually do this? How do you get to that point? And for me, there's another question which rings just as loud. What am I supposed to be doing with my life? Okay, here goes. Let's see what happens on the way to the Alleluias of Easter. 9:40 p.m. My neighbor Helen and I spent 2 hours scanning old photos of her mother and emailing them to me on my computer since I was in the middle of writing her 89-year-old mother's extraordinary life story. Her recently deceased mother had been born in Italy in 1921 and had lived in 3 displaced persons camps in Italy and Germany after World War II. She and her family finally left the refugee camp and were admitted to the United States in 1950. Helen's parents had met in one of the camps where they fell in love, got married, and they got married wearing the simple clothes they had on. Later, they welcomed Helen to the world. However, instead of focusing on her mom's past today, I asked her a few questions about her dad, who was a musician. He was charismatic, wasn't he? I asked Helen. Yeah, he was, she said. Even the children were drawn to him. She said that whenever her parents went out, it'd be her mom, dad, and his guitar. He is so striking, I said after we scanned in a black and white headshot of him. However, your mom had a stronger personality than your dad, right? Oh, yeah, she said. Well, I left my neighbor's house in the late afternoon and awaited a call from my son from high school. In the meantime, my husband and I drifted over to our car to drive a mile to 4 p.m. Mass on Ash Wednesday. As we headed toward church, my cell phone rang. Our son had completed a math session and was ready to be picked up. Okay, we'll be right there, I said, as we headed to church for Ashes. The 3 of us arrived several minutes late and couldn't find a seat in the church, so we tiptoed up to the balcony. Upstairs, we stood quietly against the wall and tried to absorb the readings, the gospel, and the homily. Unfortunately, the priest's tone was far from inviting or inspiring. We bowed our heads, received our ashes, and walked out the door. After an early evening codfish dinner, I received a call from my brother, Steve. Dad's in the ER, he told me. He said apparently Dad's feet weren't working right, and he had fallen twice and was experiencing back pain. Steve said that our sister Kath had taken Dad to Palos Hospital, which is a few miles from my parents' home in Hickory Hills, Illinois. Our mom had left for California to visit her brother the previous day. My brother said it wasn't necessary for me to come to the hospital and that he would call me with any further news. After he reassured me again and again that it was okay not to come, I mentioned that I was planning to attend centering prayer since it was Wednesday. At that point, Steve moved the conversation away from me and told Dad I was heading to centering for the weekly meeting. Dad said that was a good place for me to go. It was approaching 7 p.m., so my husband and I left our son at the dining room table with his head buried in his textbook, and we steered the car back to the parish. We joined a circle of about 8 other men and women seated in a small chapel around a glowing candle. With the strike of a brass singing bowl, we all closed our eyes and opened our hearts to God. After 20 minutes of silent meditation, the facilitator gently struck the bowl again, and one person slowly recited the Lord's Prayer. Then the facilitator played a videotape, and we spoke about prayer and love. We discussed the tape and ended the session with joined hands and communal prayer. All right, that's it for now. Thanks so much for joining me.